Well, welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles, and I am Laina Orlando, and I am super excited today to say that this is our 200th episode. I cannot believe this has been going on for so many years on our weekly gatherings on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Um, that we have 200 episodes, and I consider these transmissions. This is where I believe that consciousness just transmits a message through me to help make A Course in Miracles not only easier to understand but more practical to apply into our everyday lives. I am so grateful that I was guided to A Course in Miracles in my journey, but what made my love affair with A Course in Miracles so powerful is that before I started studying A Course in Miracles, through guidance, I was told not to. And I was instead led to bring to birth into this world the program called The Power of Awareness. And of course, now my online course, The Power of Self-Awareness, which is something that people can take at their own pace. Um, and it's right now being beta tested by some lovely people. And the course will be ready for the general public pretty soon. But A Course in Miracles is a course in mind training, training our mind to think with God instead of the ego, to align with higher frequency instead of the habitual lower frequencies that have become our normal. But they're not natural. The frequencies of selfishness, of greed, of it's all about me, of lying and cheating and judgments and righteousness and victimization and all of those things. Those are the thought system. That is the thought system of the ego, which is lower thought system. And to be able to make the best, the most, get the most out of the teachings of A Course in Miracles, our mind has to be trained. And the power of self-awareness gives you the opportunity to take an inventory of your belief systems, to see the patterns of thoughts from the moment that you were conceived, and see what are the belief systems that you were indoctrinated with, because the entire process of awakening, what humanity is going through right now in a big way, in a collective way, is that we have to move, we have to be willing to question all of our thoughts, to recognize what was indoctrinated into us, what came from the outer world versus what is programmed in us naturally, because it comes from our inner world, it comes from God. And if it comes from God, it comes from a higher frequency. At the same time that we're training our mind, we are learning the truth about who we are and about what God is. Again, the programming, religion that taught us about a God outside of us, that gave us all of these different religions, and every single one of them, I would say, has inspired information in them, but every single one of them was tempered by men and women who gave their interpretations about things. Who, for example, in Catholicism, the Catholic Church was created by the emperor. That was not something that came out of, God wanting us to have this one church, this one person to lead us. It was a decision to form a church to help control the masses. When you understand the process by which religions have been created, by which the books that those religions say this is the word of God, when we can really be clear that the word of God is something all of us have access to, just as Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within. When we can train our mind enough to stop being so righteous and question what we learned, we then are creating the space through curiosity for, okay, if this is man-made, then what is God created? And then we begin to open up in either meditation or contemplation, in quiet, for a walk in the woods or a walk by the beach or wherever you happen to be, and you ask a question in curiosity and then wait for the answer instead of having the ego be quick to give you the answer of what it has been programmed to think is the right way of doing things. So we have a lot of work to do as a collective to question every single thing that has been taught to us. It's not an easy process because we don't want to be wrong about what we thought was right. We don't want to be wrong about what we have agreed to for our lifetimes and our parents and our grandparents. We don't want to recognize that maybe our parents were wrong, that maybe the church was wrong, that maybe the government is wrong, that maybe we've been given misinformation. So, part of the process of waking up, which is why I'm so excited that we've been doing this for 200 episodes, is if you allow the Course in Miracles to help train your mind, the result at the end of that training, and I'm not even going to say at the end of the training, but throughout that training, is that you become more peaceful, you become more open minded, you become more generous, you become more faithful. You begin to really have faith in one answer because you realize that there's one authority. You begin to recognize that you are trusting something that is beyond this world that allows you to anchor yourself while you're in this world in such a way that you have clarity about what to do, where to go, who to meet, what to say, what to do, what to wear, when to be there. You have a guidance that does that for you, but it is not of this world. This is why that saying, in the world, but not of it, Course in Miracles will lead you if you are willing to apply what the course says without interpreting what the course says, without making up your own opinion about what the course says, but rather put it into practice, your life will be dramatically different. For me, it's a 180 difference. I just went totally opposite of how I used to do things. I used to think that I had to be right, and if I was wrong, that that was the end of the world. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm excited about it because now it's like, okay, well, what else is there? God, you show me the other way. It's taken the pressure off of me having to decide everything and having, as I used to say, my shit together all the time. I don't have to have my shit together. I don't have to do that because when we live in the now moment, in that faithfulness, you are trusting that the creative source has your back. As a matter of fact, it's like having a concierge at your fingertips all the time. And no matter where you are, no matter what you do, you have that trust that you have that support team at your fingertips at all times. That means, like when you get in your car and you don't know exactly how to get somewhere, but you've got the address and you put it in, and your GPS tells you, go here, turn left, make a U-turn. And it never tells you, you stupid idiot, you didn't follow my directions. It just continually tells you the same thing in a very, very normal voice. All right, turn here. Oh, you didn't turn here. Make a U-turn. Go back. Oh, you didn't do it. Okay, make another U-turn. Go back. Guiding us gently. Course in Miracles is that for us, that ability to understand that we, when we listen to God, have a GPS at our fingertips. We have a guidance system within us that the only way to access that guidance systems is to remove all of the blocks that we have built to it. Every time you think you're right, every time you're judging, every time you're in fear, you're basically not listening to the guidance system. Now, if you listen to the guidance system, when you're in fear, when you're in judgment, you have a contraction, you feel bad. That's the guidance system telling you time to make a U-turn. Time to make a U-turn. If you feel bad, don't go in that direction. If it feels scary to judge or feels scary what people think, don't have that thought. If it feels scary to not do what the government says or to not take the pill that the doctor said, if you're scared, that is the guidance system saying make a U-turn. The U-turn is always to what would God have me do? It is that simple. Every time we feel a contraction, we're listening to the ego. All we need to do We, the one who is the conscious, aware presence, says, "Oh, I felt a contraction. God, what would you have me do instead?" But we have to cultivate trust in that God. And most of us, probably 99.9% of us, are afraid of God. And we're afraid of God because the man made religions that were created, as was the Catholic Church, by an emperor who wanted to control people. If you start reading the history, you will discover all of this. Don't take my word for anything, do your own research. But when you begin to see that anything that humans put their hands on that is directed by the ego is always 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 going to have an element of selfishness and greed in it. Anything that humans make, because in the world of this third dimension where we are listening to the ego has made a world that is filled with greed, with power, with haves and have-nots, people going hungry. How can people go hungry in a world that God gave us so many vegetables and fruits and so many trees abundant on a planet that had no boundaries other than natural delineations with mountains and water? Other than that, God gave us a planet that is fully stocked with anything and everything that would feed everybody. But what does the ego do? It makes rules and regulations and rights, and this is mine and that is yours, and if it's mine and the apple tree is here, then you have to pay me for it instead of sharing. A characteristic that we discover of someone who's aligned with God is generosity. You wouldn't want to keep anything to yourself by listening to the ego and telling you, "Oh, if I give it away, I'm going to have less." The Course in Miracles is really clear. Generosity is there's nothing I would want to keep to myself because it is in giving it away that that thing gets to multiply our joy. And when we have to hold on to things, when we have to, this is mine, it's simply because we're filling a hole within. We're filling this perceived hole, and it's not even a real hole because it's all mental. It's a decision in your mind that without that thing, you're not okay. That without that thing, you're not special. That that thing makes you feel anchored. Well, let me just say something. We're all attempting to anchor ourselves into this world that the ego has made of limitations, and this is mine, and holding on to things, and that anchors me here. You're anchored in the mind of God. You're not going anywhere. You're really not going anywhere. The essence of who you are is safe forevermore, for all of eternity. You cannot not be fully anchored in the mind of God because that is where you are because God imagined us. We are made in the image of God because God imagined, imagine. We have been imagined by God. To get to the place that you are really trusting God, you have to get to the place where you get over yourself, over your egoic opinion of yourself. You are not this body. You are free. You are a spirit that is embodying this body for a short period of time. And all the need to hold on to things is because we have been conditioned to believe that we are separate from God. God's up there on a cloud deciding if we're naughty or nice. And then that gets repeated with Santa Claus so that it really gets ingrained in your mind as a child. But when you begin to really understand that you are here because God wanted you here, you are wanted, you are valued, you bring a unique piece to the whole puzzle of what humanity is possible. When you open up yourself to question everything that you have been programmed with, that all power exists outside of us, that God is deciding if you're naughty or nice, that God is a vengeful God, that you are somehow a sinner, that there is something wrong with you, that other people know better than you. When we can stop believing all of those programmed untruths, then you can begin to replace them with the truth because that's all that we're doing is we're moving from what was made up by human minds that were disconnected from, and I use the word loosely because you cannot disconnect from God. You're in the mind of God. How can you not be connected to God? You're in God. And this is what's so beautiful about this journey is that when you begin to cultivate a relationship with God, And that to me is only possible in one of two ways. One, you train your mind to know that, to believe that, to change your thoughts about God and to change your perceptions about who you are in relationship to God. One is that mental way. The other is you have a felt experience. When I had my encounter with the divine in 2007 in August, it altered me. But here's the thing, that experience where you are altered and you feel it in your bones only lasts so long because then the ego mind kicks in. Then the ego mind begins to interpret the experience to tell you you made it up. Other people, if you share it, tell you that's not possible. How, why are you so special that God would talk to you and not me? Well, actually, God talks to all of us, but for a short period of time, a period of less than an hour, my mind got turned off and all I could feel was what God is. So either I train my mind to feel God or I feel God and then I train my mind to recognize that what I felt was real. That's the only two ways to come to really um, get to know God. You feel God and you train your mind. You train your mind and then you feel God. Those two things go hand in hand. It's part of the process, aligning mind and spirit. They have to be aligned. And then, of course, there's the body part. Once your mind and your spirit have aligned, once your head and your heart come together and trust what you now know, what your mind has been trained and what you felt in your heart, now your body has to follow. You have to move your body into the calibration of a higher frequency, meaning what you eat, the air you breathe, the water you drink, the soil you walk on has to be recalibrated. That's why humanity is going through massive changes. This is why we have people who are playing parts. You know, I did an episode a couple of weeks ago, maybe about 2 months ago, about why I voted for Trump. Listen, I'm in the world. So I'm going to do things that we do in the world. I'm going to give Caesar his due. I voted because we have a voting system, but I'm not of this world because Trump, when I said that I supported him, he is not my savior. He is one who is playing a role. And because I can see the roles that people are playing, because I am perceiving this world through the eyes of God. And that allows me to see more clearly why people are playing certain roles, even if there are things that could appear to not be as loving, because I know that not everything is as it seems. Things are appearing in a certain way that to some could be interpreted as negative, but others, when we feel, when we sense, when we go to God within, we can trust. Again, this is why you cultivate faithfulness, that God is the only authority you listen to. There is one problem in the whole world, and it's the problem of separation, of believing that we're separate from God, and then we make ourselves believe that our authorities are outside of us. But if you recognize that one problem of separation and you go to, no, wait a second, I am still one with God. I'm in the mind of God. And you go to God to give you information and guidance, you will hear very clearly what is yours to do, what is yours to say. And if I am told this is who you're going to vote for, I do that. I don't question God because there is a peace about me and I don't need to be right about any of it because I no longer play in the game of rights and wrongs. I play in the game of follow my guidance. If the GPS tells me to turn, make that U-turn, make that left, make that right, I don't need to argue with that anymore because I have come to trust it. It is the path of least resistance for me. So the Course in Miracles trains our mind to listen to God, to follow the guidance, to create a better relationship with God, to move God off of the pedestal that we have, that the church has put it on, and bring it in here, to recognize that that is where God is in everyone, to allow us to see everybody as a brother or sister in Christ, knowing that either we have trained our mind and we know the truth, or our mind has not been trained to know the truth, so we're still operating in the lies of the ego. That allows us to be compassionate and kind and generous with those who know not what they're doing. And we can forgive them because we've been there too. So all that is happening right now is that some are doing the work to align with the truth. And the truth, we experience it at different levels of consciousness. So, somebody who's down here in shame and guilt, it's very hard for them to believe that God is not upset with them, that God it loves them unconditionally, that there's no judgment. Because when you're in shame and guilt, you really believe you're a bad person. You did something terrible. You're powerless, and you are in the depths of or the pits of despair. You can't hear the truth that people are not mad at you because you're believing that you are the source of all of the problems. So you got to work your way through the levels of consciousness, train your mind to see more clearly, more clearly, more clearly. There comes a day where you no longer need to seek clarity. Clarity just is there. And you then, through that clarity, know exactly what to do. But until you get there, and for some people, it could be years, for some people, it could be decades. For all of us, it has been lifetimes preparing to come to the place where today, at this time, we have a window. And that window has been closing and closing and closing. And we're in about the last 5 years of that window, maybe 6 years, give or take, because, God doesn't operate in linear time. But in this window, we have the opportunity, if we have trained our mind, to ground ourselves in the knowingness that everything is going to be all right. It really is, because God has a purpose for each and every one of us. If we follow the guidance system, the destination is happiness, plain and simple. And in that destination of happiness, is everything that we could ever possibly desire to have inside of a human experience, which is why God says, or I should say, Jesus tells us in the Course in Miracles, because the Course in Miracles is channeled by Jesus. Jesus tells us that we can awaken in the dream. Inside of the dream of believing that we're separate, that we are in this world, on this planet. I have my house, they have their house, that you're over there and I'm over here, and I get to share information with you. That in this dream of separation, which there's nothing wrong with having a dream of separation, we can actually have a happy dream. Because when all of us get happy, because we know the truth, there's nobody to judge, there's nothing to hoard, there's nothing to steal, there's nothing to keep from another, there's no need to lie, there's no need to judge and to be afraid and to have shame or to have guilt. None of that is possible in the happy dream. So when you get to the point that you really understand the difference between training your mind and being one who is doing God's will, because you have already trained your mind and now you're in the place of mastery, that all you're doing is becoming a willing vessel for God's work to happen through you. The difference between these two is that these people here, and we've all been there that have been on this journey for a while, you're seeking, you're seeking, you're seeking, but you're still operating from fear and belief in separation. What happens here is there is no more seeking. You know that you not only have arrived, but you've never left where you have always been placed safely in the mind of God. Now, the work is, if you want to call it work, for me, it's just a lot of fun. You get to be the essence of what God wants you to be so that you can be expressing yourself completely unfiltered, completely in alignment with God's purpose, because you now have said willingly, not my will, but your will be done. And when you are prepared to say, not my will, it's because you know that the ego, although it serves a purpose in the third dimension, if you want to graduate and go to a different dimension of consciousness, meaning you want to see things from the bigger picture, you must transcend the ego. You must end the trance that the ego has placed you under. You cannot continue to listen to the voice that ignores the GPS. You're not going to get to your destination. The destination is the recognition that you are here as an expression of God's love. Uniquely as you, bringing that peace, that is so important, that piece of the puzzle that makes this world a happy dream. Because when you're invested in just living your best life, your happiest life, and it has nothing to do with getting and accumulating and finding safety outside of you because you know that it comes from within, the rules of the game change completely. You now are creating your reality. You are the creator of your reality by following the guidance, and you're going to get to that destination. I have been in my car many a times and I did not listen to the GPS, and I ended up in places I didn't really want to be. And then I had to work my way and find my way back to where I needed to go, eventually listening to the GPS or calling somebody to help me out. I got to my destination. But I took quite a few detours, went into areas that were scary, experienced some places that I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't need to do that, or got stuck in traffic and ended up taking way longer than had I listened to the GPS. But I got to my destination. I'm here, aren't I? So that means all of those years that I've been driving, eventually I got to where I needed to get to. But I can assure you that when I began to trust the GPS and I began to recognize that it had one function and its only function was to get me from A to Z, then all of a sudden I surrendered to allowing myself to experience the ease that that could bring me. If you give yourself permission to begin to question what your ego tells you is right, because that's how you know. If you think you're right, that's the time to say, is this really true? Is it really true that I'm right? Is my perception really the only one? Or is my perception the one that's right? I'm having a conversation with 10 people and they all have a different way of looking at it, and I'm insisting that I'm right. What if I begin to say, tell me, how did you come up with your perception? Why do you see it that way? And then, and then you say, let me try it. If they say that they make a recipe and they put X thing in it and you go, oh, I've never put that in there. That sounds terrible. And they say, well, it's so delicious. It's one thing to say, well, I'm happy for you. It's another one to try it, put it into action, get in your kitchen and put that ingredient in your recipe. Same thing with the eagle. You hear different perspectives. If somebody tells you, I am happier since I gave everything away, what? Try it. But we don't try the things that are going to be better for us if we continue to listen to the ego and need to be right about my way. That means we're listening to fears and we're not willing to change because we're too afraid of what could happen. But here's the thing, it's on the other side of fear. When you face that fear and the fear is making you sweat and it's making you uncomfortable and you do it anyways, you are moving through a purification process that is helping you recognize that by listening to the ego and being in fear of change, you literally are keeping yourself in chains. Listen, I'm going to repeat that again. When you listen to the ego tell you you should be in fear of change, you are staying in bondage with the chains of your own beliefs, made up in your own mind. If you go through it and you feel the tension and the anxiety, which is only your ego getting all nervous because you're about to find freedom and your ego is going to lose power over you. If you go through the sweating, through the worry, through the, oh my gosh, the intensity, the anxiety of what would I be like if I do the thing that I'm so afraid to do, that my ego keeps me from doing, you are literally creating an alchemical reaction within you. In that moment, you are deciding that you're going to trust God's way versus your ego's way. And when you have that experience and you cross through that fear, you give that thing away you didn't think you could live without. You break up that relationship that you knew it was time for you to go. You quit that job that you thought is your source of security. You don't send that check to the IRS, and you've experienced the liberation of not being in fear of somebody telling you how you should manage your money or what you should do with your money. When you do that thing that you're afraid that if you do, you're going to get punished, you're going to get in trouble, you are literally maturing yourself moving out of listening to that egoic voice, which is always your most scared inner child, your most scared self. At whatever age you picked up that fear, that's the age that you're behaving at in that moment. You move through that fear, you cut those chains of pain, and you move to the other side. Switch that job, get out of that marriage, give that thing away that you've been holding on to. Stop doing what the government tells you to do. Begin to listen to your own guidance. Go to the holistic doctor instead of the traditional doctor. I mean, one of the things that I'm so excited is watching so many people who are not following the science is, safe and effective, and they went a different route. And now what are we discovering? 5 years later, the signs were there. The people were telling us that there is another way, that there is a better way than the taking that thing that, put it in your arm. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it because there's still censoring going on. But if you, instead of doing what the authority out there tells you to do, and you decide to listen to the inner authority in you, God only wants your liberation. Because in your freedom from bondage to the ego, you are free to do God's work. And to co-create a new earth, we need all hands on deck. And granted, there are a lot of people. It's been only a handful of people over thousands of years, and then a couple dozen people, couple hundred people, couple thousand people. We got a couple million people who are doing God's work right now, and they're everywhere. And they have mastered their mind. They don't listen to the voice of the ego. They listen to the voice for God. And those masters are among us, which, by the way, is a series of interviews that I am doing, um, because I want to make it easy for people to see a master is a regular person. Some are playing political roles, some are playing roles in the medical world, some are playing roles inside of the education system, but they're listening to the voice for God, and they're not afraid to speak it. You and I have to do the work of freeing ourselves from the voice of tyranny inside of us that tells us to be afraid, to move out of the thing we kept doing and expect different results, the insanity of the ego. If there are things in your life that you know it's time for you to stop doing or to start doing today, if you want the liberation that the authority within you wants you to experience, do that thing that you're afraid to do, or don't do that thing that you know you shouldn't be doing. Go into action, put it into practice. That's the only way you're going to give yourself the experience that the other way is a better way for you. Not better as in right or wrong, but it's a path that is way more enjoyable. It's easier, but we don't get to experience that ease and the fun that comes with that ease when we're doing the old thing, getting the same old results, and then we're in shame and guilt that we didn't do the thing. I mean, it's time for people to grow up. It is time. Those who are awakening have to grow up. We have to mature. We have to stop doing the thing that we know is not good for us. And I'm saying that because I've got to do the same thing. Anything that blocks me, that stops me, I have to do the same thing. I'm not telling you anything that I'm not doing. So in what we've been looking at inside of the Course in Miracles, the last couple of weeks, we have been in chapter 3. The title of it is The Innocent Perception. We are inside section number 6, Judgment and the Authority Problem. Judgment is the ego is always judging. Oh, I can't do that thing. Or, oh, I know. The ego is always talking to us in our head, telling us what we shouldn't do because it operates from fear. But the authority problem is because we're listening to the wrong authority. It's a made up authority in our mind that we cannot feel the liberation. We cannot feel what happens to us, the transcendence, the exhilaration of freedom if you don't do that thing that your ego tells you not to do. If you're judging what could be on the other side as bad and only your way is right, only your way is a good way, you are still in the bondage. And we are at that window that I mentioned earlier. We've got a 5, maybe 6, 7 year window to decide what frequency we are committed to. And if you're in the frequency of fear, of judgment, of protection, of thinking you've got to do it all by yourself, you are locking yourself in to another round, another cycle. Different teachers, different channels say 26,000 years of repetition of because you got to work off that karma before you can come again to the same moment in time that will come back again where you have decided, no, I'm going to go up in frequency because nobody can make you raise your frequency. You have to do it all by yourself. Truly, this is where your inner 2-year-old is right. You got to do it all by yourself because God gave us free will. And you're not going to do it wrong if you spin again in with the ego and let the ego be your reality. Let the ego be what establishes your sense of authority. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're saying no to the GPS. You're telling the GPS, I know better. And you're going to end up getting I don't want to use the word stuck because it's not stuck, but you're going to go down the path of doing things the hard way because you're being stubborn, deciding that you want to learn your lessons the hard way because you know better. When the ego is no longer the voice that you are willing to listen to, you have made a decision to listen to God, and God is not going to take you down the path of pain. It is not what is going to happen when you consciously choose joy. Pain is a result of not listening to God. And you have to hit those brick walls so you can go, oh, that hurt. Well, let me turn around, or let me at least turn a little bit. Pain serves a purpose to tell you that there is a contrast and there is another way. But the only one that can get you to do it the other way is you taking control over your ego. You literally have to be the one who decides. You have to become self-aware. That's why that course is called that I have online, The Power of Self-Awareness. You have to be aware. Which voice are you listening to? Because when you make that decision to listen to the authority, God within you, you no longer have a problem. You have an opportunity to move about your growth, your expansion in a funner, easier way. And guess what? You'll do it with like-minded people because those people who choose to move to a different frequency are eventually not going to feel the people who are on the path of lower frequency of judgments and power is outside of you and government is here to save you and the financial system is going to tell you what you are worth. When you're not listening to that, you are going to be surrounded by like-minded people who are going to collaborate with you, who are willing to show you how they got to where they got to. And all of those new ways of doing things, the new financial systems, the new holistic system, the new education system that is really truly based on child is whole and complete. Child knows best, not the teacher. When you move to that way of thinking, there are so many there prepared to assist us, but they can't help us if we're going, no, I'm not going to listen to the GPS. I am not going to make that U-turn. So keep doing it your way. It's okay. Either way, you're going to end up in the same place because if the last 26,000 year cycle that we've been on isn't enough for you to say, okay, I'm done with that game, then another 26,000 year cycle will bring you to the same place of choosing. And because time doesn't exist, that's what's so amazing. You either do it now or you'll do it now in a later moment. It does not matter. But what matters, what Jesus came to teach us, Joshua came 2,000 years ago to tell us, we're not these bodies. We don't have to be afraid of people around us. We don't have to listen to what the church is saying. They've made up all these rules and regulations about God that are not true. Come know God that is within. And when you come within and you experience the kingdom of heaven within, you cannot help but forgive them. They didn't know what they were doing. They were listening to their ego. They don't know what they're doing because their righteousness comes from misinformation. If they knew God's way, they would listen to the GPS and turn around. So we can't blame anybody because we're all playing the game at the level that we want to experience it. And the thing about this journey is that we play the game at the level of worth that we feel we deserve. To be able to wake up, you must value yourself. You must decide that the way of suffering is no longer the way you want to do it. You must decide that being right about all the things that bring you fear, you're not going to do that anymore. But the only way out of that prison is to break the chain of pain, is to do the thing that you are afraid to do. There is no other way. That's what the ego does. Creates this false sense of fear that on the other side of this thing is going to be terrible. No, that's the ego telling you, lying to you so you don't do the thing that you need to do. Because if you do the thing that will free you, on the other side, you're going to go, damn, why did I wait so long? That's all that everybody says on the other side of fear. It's like, oh my gosh, why did I put myself through that suffering? Why was I stuck on my way for a year or 10 years or since I was born? That's all that happens. Everybody has a breakthrough when they go through their fear. So, inside of this section number 6, what we're understanding is that there are two ways of looking at things, through judgment or through the authority. And judgment always involves rejection. If you're judging things from your egoic perspective, you're rejecting God's guidance, God telling you, turn here, turn here, turn here, go straight, and you're not doing it. Oh, that's bad. That could hurt me. That what if I lose my money, or what if I lose my home, or what if I lose that fear? What if I lose tells you that you're stuck in limitation, that you're so afraid to lose what little you have valued yourself to deserve, that you're so afraid of losing that you're not taking a risk because you don't trust, you don't have faith in God's being the ultimate authority. You're still listening to your ego authority, which has a set point. And that set point is, as long as I have this little bit, I'll be okay. As long as I've got my $1,500 Social Security, I'm going to be okay. We have settled for so little because our mind has been trained to think small. So, of course, small, you can't have more than you believe you deserve. So, we've got to find out, what does God believe? How did God create me? What does God think I deserve? And of course, God created us in its image, and it's infinite. There's no limit to it. Only the ego in the 3D world has set a value for each and every one of us. You're only worth so many dollars an hour. You're only worth this much as your salary. You're only worth this much as for your investments. All of that is nonsense, but it's not wrong. It's the way the game is played at that level. So, judgment always involves rejection. Every time you think you're right and something else is wrong, you're rejecting possibilities. Plain and simple, not right or wrong, plain and simple. And as we begin to recognize that in this world, your perception creates your reality, whatever you believe you deserve is going to be what is going to create your reality. If you believe you deserve to just hold on to this so that you'll be okay, then hold on to that and you'll be okay, and you'll just keep working that same thing until you're courageous enough, because courageous is a very high frequency. People who are courageous need to move through a lot of levels of consciousness. That's what this chart is. You got to move through lots of different beliefs, emotions, until you get to the place that your alignment is not with the ego. You are doing the work of self-awareness, becoming aware of who you are as God created you, not who you think you are according to your ego, which is always programmed according to your parents' ego, according to society's ego, according to the government's ego. We need to stop listening to the ego if we want to be liberated to listen to God. But if you listen to the ego, you're not doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. It's not possible. So it moves us down to paragraph number 4. This is because we stopped at paragraph 3 last time. Paragraph 4. You are very fearful of everything you have perceived but have refused to accept. We're very fearful of everything we have perceived. We perceive that God has our back, but we don't accept that God has our back, so we're doing things all by ourselves. You believe that because you have refused to accept it, you have lost control over it. Well, if I don't listen to God, if I don't do it God's way, I'm going to be stuck here. No, you're not going to be stuck. You have the power to decide always. You're always in control of your journey. You're always choosing low vibe, medium vibe, high vibe. You are always in control by the thoughts that you think. Let me say that again. You are always in control based on the thoughts that you think. You are always in control. This is why you see it in nightmares or in pleasant disguises in what seem to be your happier dreams. Nothing that you have refused to accept can be brought into awareness. If you decide, okay, God loves everybody else but not me, I'm a bad person, it can't be brought into your awareness because you are in control of saying, I'm not worthy. Then God says, okay, this one wants to have an experience of what not being worthy is about. And I have to respect because I created my creations, and I'm speaking like if I were God, I created my creations with free will. So if this one wants to think that they're unworthy, if they want to think that they're not good enough, if they want to think that they'll be lost if they don't hold on to whatever it is that they think they have to hold on to, God says, I respect that. Then if you want to play that game for another 26,000 years, it's okay. God is not going to punish anybody for experiencing whatever dimension of consciousness they want to experience. God is a loving God that knows that every single one of us has to get the lessons the way we believe we deserve them. If we have low self-worth, then we believe we deserve suffering. That's just what goes with the ego. If you believe that you are valuable and you deserve to have life be fun and easy, then that's the path. God says, okay, go right. This one's willing to listen to. That GPS voice is going to come on and you're going to listen to it and you're going to do that. This is why you cannot get anything wrong because you're always in control. When the ego is who you choose to listen to, ego is in control because you gave it power. You said, you tell me what to be afraid of, and I'll live my life in a nice little small circle, afraid of anything outside. That's okay. If you assume control, that's again you who becomes aware and get curious. Well, what else is there on outside of this circle? What is outside of this circle? Let me see. Let me try it. But you have to do it to get out. This is a world of physicality where we have bodies that do things. We have to do the thing that scares us so that we can see that on the other side, it was, made up thing in our head. So again, nothing that you have refused to accept can be brought into your awareness. When you say, no, God, I'm not going to listen to the GPS, GPS is not going to turn itself on. You have to turn it on. And right there, it tells you where to go. But if you think you know better, you're not going to turn on the GPS. And most of us don't turn on the GPS when we know the route because we get in a rut and we know that. And most people don't leave that circle of the areas that they know. They go to the same store, the same restaurant, they meet with the same people. Maybe they'll travel out and go to a place, that they've been to before or do something. Maybe they'll be adventurous, but then they come right back to that little circle. So all of us have our threshold of what we think is safe to step outside and what we think it's not. So it is not dangerous in itself, but you have made it seem dangerous to you. Oh my gosh. It is not dangerous in itself for you to continue to listen to the voice of the ego. Not at all dangerous. Not at all dangerous. And you know what I just realized because I just wrote this down? I said that this was the 200th episode, but it is not. It is the 190. Last one was 189. So my math, clearly I'm letting go of the egoic math and I'm doing my own math. So it's not 200, it's 190. This will be episode 190 because that goes after 189. And this is what's so beautiful about this particular statement here, this line that says, it is not dangerous in itself for us to hold on to the old. It's not. But we have made it dangerous because if we are holding on to what the ego says we should do to be safe, it feels dangerous to go outside. It feels like the world's going to punish us or somehow we're going to get in trouble because we're giving power outside of us. So we create the perception of danger because we are believing in that. But God is not going to punish anybody. That is man-made religious stuff. That is what the government likes to make us believe. The old governments that are crumbling are the governments of punishment. And those governments are crumbling because the lies are no longer sustainable. There are too many of us who have stepped outside of that egoic boundary, chose to be courageous, and are not afraid of what the government is going to do because the government is not our authority. It is not our ultimate authority. If you believe that God is your authority, then what the government does is strictly part of the game that you're playing in, knowing it's a temporary experience. And if you're not willing to play by the fears of the ego, you have the courage to say, no, I'm going to do it differently. And then you step out of that. You purify yourself. You go through the fear of, oh my gosh, what will happen? And then you come out on the other side and go, nothing happened. It's still me. I'm still okay. I just don't have that fear because I walked through that purification process of letting it burn, saying, nope, it's not running my life. And in that place of freedom, what you will discover is that there was really nothing dangerous, that the only danger was in your believing you would be in danger if you left your tiny little circle that the ego put you in, or little box that the ego had you in. And the ego is nothing more than beliefs. The Course in Miracles is really clear. Ego is a tiny mad idea, a thought that you are somehow separate from God and you got to protect yourself in this little box. And when you decide that you are safe because you're in the mind of God, you then need to follow that GPS. That guidance is going to move you, but you have to take the action. You cannot 20 years later keep saying, oh, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll try it, but not today. I'll try it tomorrow. You have to take the action to prove to yourself that you are worthy. You are worthy of the liberation that awaits you when you no longer believe the thoughts in your mind that were programmed by people who listen to their ego. We're in the process of judgment and the authority problem. If you listen to judgment, you have a problem, a big problem, because that problem is that you're not listening to that GPS that wants to guide you to your happy dream. But it's not a bad thing. You just are saying you're going to have to learn the hard way because that's just how you prefer to do it. You prefer to live inside of that little box, that little house that you have built for yourself, and you don't want to go beyond it. But to go beyond it is to move beyond your beliefs, is not to move beyond what other people believe about you. In a way, yes, but it's when you agree to the limitations that you have been indoctrinated with, they are now your beliefs. You have to take responsibility. Give mom back her beliefs, give dad back his beliefs, give the government back their beliefs, and say, no, I'm only going to believe what God says. And I'll tell you one thing, what God believes and wants you to try is not of this world. It is not of this world. It's not that small. It's not that confined. It's big, giant leaps. It's going beyond what's possible that this mind cannot conceive of when it's been trained into contracting into becoming very small-minded. What lies beyond, we don't know. But what we have to trust is that it's going to lead to something wonderful because God said that our purpose is happiness. And if you trust God and your purpose is happiness, you're going to be willing to go wherever you need to go because you are going to trust that happiness is what the outcome is. But let me be more specific. Happiness is not the destination. Happiness is what you feel when you're free from the bondage of the ego. And then your life becomes just a happy journey. That you live in the now moment, trusting that wherever you are is where you're supposed to be. And that opportunities and the right people and the right everything is going to show up at the right time. You just have to say yes to that and take the action that moves you from this little circle, this little box, to beyond your limitations based on your indoctrination. With that, we will complete this. If anybody has anything you want to share about this, unmute yourselves. Otherwise, remember this is episode 190. Moving beyond our limitations, moving outside of the ideas that our ego has placed us inside of by our willingness to not be courageous enough to say, there's got to be another way, and then do it. All right. So nobody's going to say anything. So we will complete this episode and we will see you next week. Love you all. Thank you so much. For all the other 189 episodes, go to my YouTube channel, Laina Orlando. See you all later. Bye bye.